What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tattoo Critiques. Our last aged tattoo video did so well, we figured we'd dive back in and check out a few more. So stick around, you're not going to want to miss it. This is going to be a good one. Once again, welcome back. I figured I'd start this video off with an absolute banger, and this first image is a 2-week-old white palm tattoo. So go ahead and pause this video and let me know in the comments how you think this is gonna heal. And looking at this after only 1 month, I'm pretty surprised that it's still in the skin. It does look a little shaky, but for being white ink on the palm, I'm really surprised. All right, so let's see what this tattoo looks like after 2 years. And I gotta say, super impressed by the artist on this tattoo. Either that or this person never works with their hands or washes them, because this thing didn't go anywhere. And in fact, it looks like it actually got better. Those lines blew out the right amount to make this thing look nice and thick. And again, I think this person's hands are just so supple, and they probably use a lot of lotion, because this tattoo healed so well in every little spot, on the side of the thumb, on the side by the pinky, even on the knuckle on the pointer finger. There's only a little bit of fallout, and I'm shocked, because it's hard to get even black to stay like this. The creases on the wrist stayed exceptionally well, and it almost looks like it healed better than that black tattoo. And judging by this tenant tattoo, she's obviously breaking the rules of nature, because I've never seen a white palm tattoo heal this good. So let me know if your prediction was right, because I don't think mine was, and let's check out the next one. And with this one, we have a 4-year-old, what I would call a micro color tattoo. And I know a lot of people like to rag on this style of tattoo online, which it's always nice to see a good healed tattoo of this style. And with this one in particular, I do worry that all those whites are gonna fall out. We'll probably lose some detail in the little bear's face. I do have a feeling that it will be a couple pink blobs with some green in it, and I think we'll just lose a lot of that detail. So let's check out the picture from 2025, and I'd say I was mostly correct on this one. I am surprised to see that a lot of that detail has stayed, especially around that bear. The eyes didn't blow out too much. They're still, for the most part, the same size. You can kind of see the little smiling face, but I do think it helped tremendously to have that little gray wash outline around the bear. Otherwise, that thing probably would have faded into that little dirt road trail. Having the blacks in the trees was a wise move as well, as I think that's probably the strongest part of the tattoo. And I would say I was correct about the white, because all that disappeared. But I also don't think it was applied very well if you look at the fresh photo. But I don't necessarily think the artist used it as a crutch, because even if that white were to completely disappear, as it did, the skin tone is still showing through and it appears white. It is a little more clear that the bear is holding a flower in the fresh photo, and in the healed photo it just looks like a pink blob. But all that color is still there, and you can still tell exactly what's happening in this tattoo. So I am pretty impressed with the heal of this tattoo, although I think most of that has to contribute to the blacks or even the high contrast that this thing has. Because if it were all lighter tones, I think it would have disappeared, kind of like the sky did. But it's nice to see those 2 dark green or black lines that are running to the side of the trail as well, because I think that really helped out with the structure and keep its depth. I think maybe one thing the artist could have done, since they outlined the bear, is outline that front flower as well. Since that is the object that's sitting closest to the viewer's eye, it couldn't hurt to have a little 3-liner gray wash outline around that thing. But again, pretty impressed with the heal. I don't really see anything wrong with it after 4 years. Moving on. All right, this next one is a sperm whale that's aged about 8 years. And I gotta say, I do worry about this tattoo a little bit, because those lines do look pretty well packed in, and they are very close together. Also, this being 8 years old, the lines do look like they were made with a coil machine, which can be a little more aggressive than a rotary, when it comes to lines anyway. And I personally still do prefer coil machines for outlining, but you have to be careful with them. And I think that's why a lot of times we see tattoos that are 10, 20 years old that are all blown out, is because they were most likely made with a coil machine, and we didn't have the finesse techniques that we do today. In my personal opinion, rotary outlines tend to be not as strong as a coil outline, so they have a higher chance of falling out, where coil machines have a higher chance of blowing out. An artist just has to be careful with whatever machine they choose. That being said, again, I do worry about these lines being so tight, and they do look really strong, so I have a feeling they're gonna blur out quite a bit. So let's check out the healed tattoo 8 years after. And this is kind of what I expected, to be honest, especially when we look at that line on the very back of the whale. That thing has blown out so much and is super thick. Even when we look at the whale's eye, the thing is non-existent anymore. The lines on the body I don't really mind so much, as the artist did leave enough skin tone between those lines on the fresh tattoo, but this is why it's important to set yourself up for a tattoo 10, 15 years from now. You have to know how these things are gonna age, and I think it's important to have your clients send you photos 5, even 10 years down the road. So if you have any mistakes in your work, you can learn from them. It is a bummer that the whale lost that eye, but I think it is savable. Another artist could probably add a little bit of white in there to bring it back to life. And speaking of coil versus rotary machines, this next one is 22 years old. So I would almost bet that this tattoo is made with a coil machine. And if you look closely, especially to those lines around the leg, those aren't really blown out. And I wish we had a fresh version to show you. Unfortunately, we don't with this tattoo in particular. But again, I think the artist that did this tattoo really knew how to use a machine well. There's still detail in the face, even after 22 years. The letters aren't that blown out. You can still clearly see what it says. So I think this is a great example of knowing your machine and how it can heal really well, even after 22 years. I do see that the OP is surprised at how much it faded, but again, it is 22 years old, and it is on part of their arm where it likely gets a lot more sun. So as far as aged tattoos, I think this one did a really good job. And on to the next one. All right, and with this one, we have a tattoo that's titled Realistic Rose, aged 6 years. And although I have to say that this tattoo does look beautiful, I worry about there not being enough black. And I know it's a pink rose, there's not really a whole lot of black in a pink rose, but we have to tattooify these things. Even if it's just adding black to the pink to really darken that pink up so it lasts for years to come, you need some sort of structure to keep this thing around forever. So let's check out the healed photo and see what it looks like. And exactly what I said, it is missing a lot of those blacks or dark tones. And although there are some dark areas, I don't think it's quite enough to hold this thing together. I think the biggest thing this tattoo could have used is a 3-round liner, gray wash outline around those front petals. It would just get those closer petals to pop out a lot from those petals that are sitting behind it. It does look like the artist outlined the leaves, which I think is a strange move, because if you're gonna outline the leaves in the background, then you would want to outline the petals in the front. So it just makes the leaves look more focused than the actual petals. All right, so I will say I should have read the description before critiquing this tattoo, because it does look like the OP touched it up a few months after they got it, which makes quite a bit of sense. Because if you look at the fresh tattoo on the bottom leaf, there's this almost light blue shade that's not there in the healed tattoo. But that doesn't really change my mind on this thing needing an outline and bumping up that contrast overall. Either way, let's check out the next one. All right, this next one comes in hot from user Batty Midlife Mom with a 13-year-old wrist tattoo. And looking at the fresh version of this tattoo, I gotta say, not the biggest fan of these letters. It just looks like this artist didn't know how to fix their lettering after printing it off from a font website, because the gap in between the A and M on family and the I and M on family is just, it's pretty whack. I also gotta say, it doesn't look like they really know how to put down lines either, because if we look at the 2 P's in happiness, those lines are kind of sketched in there, most likely leading to trauma that wasn't necessary. So let's check out the healed version of family love happiness. This thing healed like dog shit. Absolute dog shit. And I do see the top comment says that's what you get with script, but I feel like I do have to combat that a bit, almost play the devil's advocate here. Because I personally have seen 10, 15, 20-year-old script on a wrist and it looked great. It all comes back to the artist, what they're using, and how much finesse they have. This one in particular, as I said before, the artist probably put a lot of trauma into this tattoo, and that's why it looks the way it does. I'm well aware of how skin ages. You don't have to check me on that. But script can look good for a really long time if done well. With this one, as simple as it seems, was just out of the artist's capabilities. On a positive note, the gap on either side of that M really closed together, so there's that. But this thing obviously healed terribly, and for 13 years old, this thing should be looking a lot better than this. Unfortunately, this one would be a very difficult one to fix up, but a cover-up might be in your future. Let's check out the next one. All right, this next one is super interesting if you ask me. It's a 2.5-year-old healed Tabori tattoo. It's a super fun design. It's a cute little tiger guy sitting crisscross applesauce munching on some chicken nuggies. What more can you ask for? And for those of you who don't know, Tabori is a Japanese method that literally translates to hand carved. But again, I think that means a lot less trauma to the skin rather than a machine constantly slamming back and forth into the skin. I'm not hating on machines. I use them myself, but if I had the patience, I would use Tabori, but I don't. So let's check out the healed version of this tattoo. And I gotta say, this thing is beautiful, especially those whites. After 2.5 years, I gotta say these lines still look as fresh, if not better than it was the day of. The orange is perfectly solid all the way around, and the same could be said for those yellows. It's almost like a sticker, this thing healed so well. I have seen artists outline their Tabori style tattoos with machine and then color it in with the hand-poked needle. I'm not sure what was done here, but either way, you can clearly tell the artist knows what they were doing. I'm so mad this tattoo's not on me. I gotta say, I'm super impressed with the white heels on this subreddit today. Reddit usually lets me down, so I'm pleasantly surprised. Either way, let's check out the next one. All right, with this one, we've got another palm tattoo, or the fingers, I should say, and this time it says, this time. And chances are, again, I'd bet this was done with a nice running coil machine, because those lines look super thick, and when you do fingers on the inside, you generally want to bury them a little bit deeper than you normally would, because you almost want them to blow out. And I do know from personal experience, I have the word Nintendo on my fingers that the artist said, we're gonna go for bone. And he did. And these are probably about 12, 13 years old, and they stuck really well. So let's check out the healed photo, and yep, these things are definitely blown out, but in a good way, because this tattoo isn't going anywhere. I think a lot of times artists struggle with inner palm tattoos and inner finger tattoos because they're using rotaries, and they are a lot harder to get to stick. I don't know the exact mechanics of that, but I think that's because coil machines use spring and there's enough give there to allow you to push a little bit harder than you normally would with a rotary. Again, I don't know if any of these tattoos were done with a coil machine, it just looks like it after 25 years of tattooing. If you have this tattoo, let me know in the comments. This guy obviously uses his hands a bit more than the last palm tattoo we saw, and you can tell that from the gap in between the I and the M, which he does talk about in the comments. It was due to a callus from weightlifting. But either way, you can't ask for a much better heel than this for the inner fingers. I know I've mentioned the artist before, but if you guys are interested in palm tattoos or inner finger tattoos, be sure to check out the artist Luke Ashley. If you go through the Instagram, that seems to be almost all they do, and they heal exceptionally well. But great job on the artist. Let's check out one more. And for this last one, we have a cute little Kirby tattoo on some melanated skin. A color Kirby at that, which is always good to see. This tattoo is super cute, but I do feel like the artist was almost using the white as a crutch on this tattoo to give it more contrast. But when or if this white falls out, we're gonna be left with a rather flat looking Kirby. On the other end, I do love that the artist decided to use a lot of black in this tattoo to keep its structure over the years. Like in the bottom round part of this Kirby, it was a wise choice to use black rather than a darker shade of the color. And even on that little drop shadow onto the star, it's just there to have a nice separation. Now, if we look at the healed tattoo, it is pretty glary, so I'm gonna try to look past that. But it does look like most of that white has fallen out. It does look like a couple spots of white stuck around though, like in that shaker on the top left. You can clearly see a couple little white lines. So this just goes to show you that white can stick on melanated skin, but it does go in a bit different. You have to have experience. I do like how the yellows and browns settled in on the star. It looks like it healed really well. Although with the white dots on the rainbow, it seems as though the artist put those whites on there after that color was already in. So chances are it's not gonna stick around, and as we can tell by the healed photo, it surely didn't. I do think the super thick outline helped out a lot as well. It just kept it nice and bold. And again, that dark shading in Kirby himself really stood the test of time, because if anything's gonna stick around after years, it's gonna be black. This really isn't a bad heel by any means. I know we're kind of fighting through seeing that glare on the tattoo, but if that weren't there, I bet this thing would look a lot more vibrant. It did get a little scarred up on the chef's hat, which it's not the worst scarring I've seen. Obviously, it would have been nicer to not have any scarring at all, but again, this tattoo didn't heal bad at all. And I think this tattoo is a great example of how color can heal on melanated skin. And speaking of, we saw the comments. I know you guys want to see a darker skinned or melanated episode, and we're working on it. But there's just an overwhelming lack of posts on the age tattoo subreddit. So if you have darker melanated skin, I would love to see your healed tattoos. And if you happen to have pictures of the fresh tattoo, even better. Send it over to ponycritiques@gmail.com and we'll do a full episode on it. All right, guys, that's gonna be it for the aged tattoos subreddit, but I hope you enjoyed what you saw. And be sure to let me know your thoughts on these healed tattoos in the comments below. I was honestly surprised by Reddit today. Like I said before, Reddit usually lets me down, so it was very refreshing to say the least. Don't forget to subscribe while you're here, and as always, I will see you guys next week.